Steve Jarvis has asked that now our most prized asset in Jarrod Bowen and others who are big earners are off the books, will we see any of the money reinvested back into the squad, or will the money be used to negotiate a sale of the club?
If I can take a step back from that question a little bit and then just consider the wider aspect of the finances of the club. In the Championship in general, most clubs are losing significant amounts of money. The permissible losses in the league are up to £13 million per year and £39 million over 3 years. So the aim is to have a sustainable club, and a part of that sustainability is to make the books balance. Now in football, unfortunately, the player wages are significant and significantly higher than the income of the club from the ticket sales and from the commercial operations. So that needs to be subsidised year on year with the player trading. So to answer the question, yes, the proceeds of sale will be used to finance and to plug the gap in future seasons.
Tom Platts from Beverley has asked, with the valuation of the club being 50 million last year, now Jarrod Bowen and Kamil Grzycki have moved on, what is your valuation of the club, and are you still looking to sell?
In terms of the valuation of the club, I don't know where it's been reported as 50 from last year. The price has varied, obviously. The valuation, our own valuation of the club, has actually varied because of the club having parachute and now not having parachute payments. You have to consider the value of the squad you have at any one time, not just the price you've paid for the players, because obviously they increase in value as well if you've done a good job in the player recruitment. We have a realistic expectation for the sale of the club, and the sale of the players hasn't really impacted significantly on that valuation. Firstly, because when you sell players, you don't often get paid up front. So if you look at Bowen, for example, we've been paid over 3 years and those payments haven't even started yet. So the first payment will be received next month.
On the second part of that question, are you still looking to sell?
Yes, that's still the intention.
Adam O'Toole, do you consider getting £800,000 for Kamil Grzycki as a good deal for the club?
Yes, I think when you consider the contractual positions of certain players, I think it's normal for a club to be selling its best players. If you're not selling your best players, then you're letting them go for free at the end of the contracts, and that isn't sensible. So there is a time to sell at the best possible value, and we believe that was it in the last window. If you look at Grzycki in particular, 800,000. He was on very high wages. We would have probably let him go on a Bosman in the summer. So to take 800,000 now and the saving on wages, that's then helped us fund the acquisition of, for example, James Scott.
Rob Cheeseman has asked, what is the total amount of profit, including add-ons, agreed in the sale of Jarrod Bowen?
Unfortunately, when you sell players, there is normally a non-disclosure agreement in there. So I'm not at liberty to say, but all I can say is the figures reported in the press are usually fairly accurate, whether it's in relation to this deal or to other deals. They're normally fairly accurate, and anybody who has a fairly good knowledge of accounting will be able to have a rough idea when they see the year-end accounts.
Ian McNicholl has asked, what are the prospects of the club being sold before the commencement of next season?
That's a difficult one. We've been selling for 5 years and it hasn't gone through up until now. So although we are hopeful, really difficult to say.
A similar question on the takeover sale of the club. Connor Barlow, have there been any more discussions with any more possible takeover parties, and how close have they come?
Yeah, we still have some interest in the club at the moment, but I wouldn't want that to limit somebody else coming forward if there is further interest.
Bobbi Hadgraft has asked, what are your aspirations for the rest of your time as chairman? And what do you realistically think the club can achieve?
Aspirations really have always been to have a sustainable club. So obviously now without the parachute payments, because up until last season we had always been in receipt of either the Premier League monies or with parachutes since we bought the club back in 2010-11. So this is the first season without parachutes. We have managed the club sensibly in the previous years, really good relegation clauses, and we've done some fairly good deals selling players on. So we're in a good and stable financial position. Recruitment's been really good over the last few seasons. We do have to cut our cloth accordingly, but it's a very difficult transition to manage between the Premier League, a parachute club, and then non-parachute. If you compare us to other clubs in a similar situation, I think we are in a much better financial situation. So for me, as a part of the sustainability, it's a big part of that is the recruitment and the academy. So to bring players through, to have a playing philosophy which is across all aspects of the club, academy, all the way through to first team, having a pathway through to the first team and recruiting well in the first team as well.
James Ward from Scarborough, will we be building to have a strong fight for promotion next season?
Again, as part of the sustainability, we're looking to have an attractive style of football. We need our own identity, which we have worked on significantly over the last 3 seasons, working on 4-3-3 and a certain style of play. And it's more about actually building that identity and then being able to have a sustainable model around that identity, recruiting for that style of play, and to be able to sell players on, to develop players and to sell them on. As I mentioned earlier, there's always a funding gap each season, and therefore you fund that gap with the player transfers.
Andrew Gossop from Hull, can you give me a reason why I should still pay for a pass when there doesn't seem to be any ambition from the club, like selling all of our best players?
As I mentioned earlier, if you're not selling your best players, then you're letting them go for free, and that isn't sensible at all. I don't think that's what anybody wishes for the club, to let your best players go for free, because that isn't sustainable. So is he a Bowen fan or is he a Hull City fan is the first question. If you're a Hull City fan, then you accept that there is rotation in your squad, and as long as you're getting best value for the better players, then you have to accept that as part and parcel of the game, really. I'd like to think the identity of the club and the style of play, exciting football now, on the front foot, attacking, is, that should be what's attracting fans to come here.
Daniel Greenwood, why have you stopped investing money in the club? Since the Premier League, you haven't put money in to sign players.
I think that's untrue. We have put money in to sign players. Yes, it's at a much lower level than it was in the Premier League, obviously. But again, a part of that is the sustainability. You see several other clubs in the Championship now who are in breach of the profitability and sustainability rules, incurring significant penalties, and it's an unsustainable model. And like I said, it is invested back into the club. Yes, we are reducing the overall debt at the same time, but as I said, there is a shortfall each season which we fund.
Phil Jebb, the club seems to have gone down the route of signing up-and-coming youngsters. Is this intentional, or will we be looking to recruit more experienced players in the future? No,
it's intentional. As I've already mentioned, there is a funding gap. We have to be a trading club. We have to develop players. We have to bring the youth through, the academy system into the first team, and we do need to rely on the player sales to make the books balance.
Stephen Strand from Bridlington has asked, how come you're not signing high league players and instead are getting players from League One?
As a part of the financial sustainability, we need to be developing players and then selling them on for a transfer profit, as we have done in the past with examples of Sam Clucas, Andy Robertson, Harry Maguire, all purchased from either the Scottish League or from lower leagues. They've all been really successful for us.
A question on contracts now. Jan Drinkall, Please can you give us an update on the new contracts, and specifically who would you like to retain?
I'm not in a position to do that whilst we're still in negotiation with the players.
Tom Edmiston, with Grant McCann on a rolling contract, will we be seeing him offered a new deal for the next season as things stand?
The benefit of the rolling contract is we don't need to think seasonally.
Joe Wardrobe from Hull has asked, what is the club doing to ensure it protects itself over its best assets, and why aren't players wanting to commit their futures to the club?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously we will try and develop players as best we can, increase their value, but the players who are ultimately successful here have opportunities elsewhere on a higher salary. If you look at several cases in the last 18 months, we have tried to protect our best assets, with offering new contracts. If you look at Jared, for example, is a fairly good example. He came through the academy, I think in his first 2 seasons had 3 new contracts. So we did protect the asset, but they reached a point where a player knows they can get a better deal somewhere else. They can go to a bigger club in a bigger league, and you can understand that attraction for them. So at some point in that journey, they decide not to sign a new contract with you. So you either move them on at the right time when they still have value, or you accept that they will run the contracts out and become free agents. So the way you protect yourself is to sell at the right time.
Some supporters have asked about attendances, enticing fans back. Chris Lister from Corby said it was fantastic to see a full house against Chelsea. How are you going to entice the fans back now? Attendances around the 10,000 mark can't be good for the players playing in a less than half full stadium. We need to be up to 18 to 20,000 in the Championship.
Yeah, I think we've done lots of work in that regard. If you look in the last 2 seasons, we've done lots of work with the supporter committee. We have addressed, I think, all of the issues which they presented to us. We addressed the issue of the crest, with the name, with the concessions. So I think we've done all we can to remedy the things which were concerning fans. I think we have an exciting brand of football at the moment, and with all said and done, I think we're in a fairly good position now to attract fans back.
David Newman from Hull has asked about you and your family returning to matches at the KCOM. Are you enjoying it? And if so, will the return of negative chanting make you have a rethink?
No, I think we've already considered our position in that regard. The decision to come back was to show solidarity and to support the team. I think everybody should get behind the team now.
John Barton has asked about the prices. Membership prices are very good, but with poor crowds, will you be looking at the matchday prices for next season?
We have looked at the matchday prices this season with the supporter committee, and we looked at ways of setting a reasonable price for those fans who only attend 1 game a season, such as the Leeds Derby, for example. You get a lot of fans just attending 1 match. So obviously you need to be able to set a price which is reflective of a person only coming for 1 game in a season. And also for your visiting fans, you want to maximise the match day income. So we looked at this with the supporter committee, and that's why we have the system that's been adopted. It was adopted in conjunction with the supporter committee. They went out to their members for feedback, and we have structured the pricing in the way that we have.
Another question on pricing and the model from Stephen Halkon in Doncaster. How come at the recent price alignment, old age pensioners such as myself saw no reduction?
Because the move away from the zonal pricing back to concessions wasn't specifically about achieving reductions for specific individuals. It was about establishing a concessionary rate, and with the adults subsidising the youth. We had consultation with the fan groups and the supporter committee, and this was the structure which we which we chose to adopt with their recommendation and with their full support. And I do think, you know, it is very good pricing, and the pricing does promote and reward those fans who attend more regularly. And there's a stepping stone between a fan who attends one game a season, such as Leeds, you know, to those who attend 6 a season or more. And you get the pricing benefit the more you attend. That's the reward for the loyalty.
Colin Draper from Hull has asked, the result of a recent vote was to return to the 2010 concession model. The 2010 concessions included a disabled concession. When are you going to fully implement what the fans voted for?
Yeah, that's a more difficult, you know, sort of question to answer, because I understand it, you know, that it's very emotive. The landscape has changed since the 10-11 pricing in regards to disabled supporters, and the recommendation from Level Playing Field is to not discriminate and to have the same pricing, but with the addition of a free carer. That's what's adopted by most clubs. That's what's recommended by Level Playing Field and the disabled organisations. That's also what's in place with our 2 local rugby clubs as well.
David Roberts, what is the club doing to help reduce the impact on the environment in light of the current climate emergency?
We're always looking at improved ways to become environmentally friendly. We're looking at improved recycling, use of different materials, wooden forks, for example, instead of plastic. And there are several measures which will be implemented over the course of the next 6 to 12 months.
Rebecca James from Beeford has said, myself, my husband and 2 children attend as many home matches as we can. The Hull v Derby home match and half-term training event was great for our family. What other fun events can we look forward to before the end of the season to keep my 11 and 7-year-old keen?
Okay, half-term is approaching at the moment, so we do have several events planned for that, including free stadium tours. There's a fee from pizza night, and some player signings as well. In relation to the matches, we review the matchday entertainment on a regular basis, and we always try to mix it up and to add things exciting for children.
Corey Taylor has asked, would you be willing to connect more with the fans in a similar way to how Darragh McAntony does at Peterborough? I think this would be a good way to iron things out and to create a better connection with fans in the club.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing now with this interview. I think that's maybe not the best example to use. There are some things better left unsaid, in particular when it comes to player departures. I think, you know, things can become a little bit sensitive, but I do think this type of approach, answering, you know, sensible questions from the fans, and of course I am prepared to do that on a regular basis, and obviously have regular contact through the supporter committee as well.
Paul Jarvis, are the club concerned about the number of injuries our players suffer, and can you give an explanation, i.e. poor training methods, training facilities not good enough, or purchasing injury-prone players?
I'll answer that in the reverse. So the injury-prone players, I think if you look at the recent few windows, we've been signing much younger players with a much improved medical record over our previous signings from 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I think that is certainly improving. The current level of injuries is of concern, obviously. We do look into the detail of our training methods, the player loadings, and also what they do in their own time as well. So obviously we have been looking very closely at our recent injuries and investigating the potential causes.
Jamie Turnbull from York. Under your family stewardship of the club, we at Hull City have seen many highs and many lows. Out of all of them, what has been the best and the worst part of being the owner? And do you feel under your ownership we will see success as we have done previously?
Okay, so that's worst or the lowest, the high, and future success. So high point for me was tight call between FA Cup final, going 2-0 up, almost scoring a third with being cleared off the line, and the promotion at home when we finished second in the league and we played Cardiff at home. What an exciting end to the game, and then having to watch the Leeds-Watford game for 16 minutes worth of injury time. So, and also seeing the reaction of the players in the dressing room, because they were watching in the dressing room. So seeing the reaction of, for example, Elmo and Robbie Brady, that was just fantastic. So that is probably my favourite highlight of our ownership. Lowest, oof. I can't think of a lowest point, to be honest. I think when you get promoted, you accept a club of our size, there's a risk of relegation. So I won't necessarily call that a low point. That's a difficult one, the low point. I think the upset with the fans probably is the lowest point, but there's not necessarily one specific event that I can relate it to, but just in general, that's been the low point, really, the relationship with the fans. But I hope we've gone a long way to improve that in recent times.
And the final part of that as well was, do you feel under your ownership we will see success as we have done previously?
I would hope so, but it depends how you define success. In the past, our success was actually getting promoted at any cost, which for me is just far too much risk, far too much financial risk for the club and for the family. Success for me now is more about having a really good identity, a good style of play, and maximising performance and having exciting football matches. And I do think we have had that in recent times. Yeah, the last few games haven't been fantastic, but I think we can get back to exciting games like we had at the up until Christmas.